Welcome to part 2 of my blog, Speaking Through the Fog, on doctors. I'm sorry I had to lay down. It was getting too painful to sit the way I was. So, anyways, I wanted to tell you in this one about some terms that psychologists use and doctors have taken to basically say that you're doing the symptoms yourself. Use this knowledge when you go into a doctor's appointment, especially people with undiagnosed symptoms, to protect yourself from doctors making you using medical terms to basically tell you that you're doing this to yourself. They don't never tell you that to your face. They usually use these terms, and it's really insulting, and they hope that by doing this they can basically tell you to get therapy without angering you. So the first one, this example I use is actually shows not only that about the term, but it also tells you that this treatment extends to all stratas of our culture, even to the highest, which is celebrities. Yolanda Hadid, a star Beverly housewife, was diagnosed with neurological Lyme disease, and her co-hosts were kind of weirded out by the fact that even though she had this diagnosis, it took her a long time to get over it, and that she would sometimes come to work looking perfectly fine, dressed up in her makeup, and then, sometimes she'd come looking a little, tired, but she would go to awards shows sometimes, she wouldn't to others. Was she using it to, kind of get out of things she didn't want to do? And then she, they were doing the basic, well, if she can look fine some of the time and she looks perfectly normal, what if she's just, faking it and could look okay all of the time? And what they don't see is behind her closed doors how sick she is, and how bad she looks, because as chronic fatigue sufferers, or not fatigue, chronic illness sufferers, anybody who has that would know that we try really hard to be normal and to get out of bed and to look nice and feel like a person for a little bit. And then, we go back to our room and, spend weeks in bed. So, the one thing that one of her co-hosts said was maybe she has Munchausen syndrome. Now, Munchausen syndrome is very usually mixed up with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Munchausen syndrome is when you do things to make yourself ill, like take pills, poison, break your leg. You'll go so far as to get these horribly painful tests and surgeries and stuff, just so that people believe you're sick. And you do it for the sympathy and the attention. And it's never for monetary gain. It's usually just for the attention people give you. Munchausen syndrome by proxy now, however, is when you do it to somebody you are taking care of, are physically responsible for. So it's a form of abuse. A lot of parents do it to their children within the syndrome, and that's Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And they'll even go so far as to kill the person to get the sympathy from, the death. They've changed it to factitious disorder to yourself, or factitious disorder to another, or whatever. And this is probably to help with the confusion between the two and the stigma put on people who have just Munchausen syndrome. So that's one that people like to use. Laurie Edwards is a author and a English professor and a chronic illness sufferer. She's also a chronic illness advocate, and she is very angry because she's written many articles about the DSM edition 5, which came out in 2006. Now, it is the Bible of the psychological world. It's put out by the American Psychiatric Association, and the DSM stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's got kind of it's got a bad rap. I'll go into more of a history of all of this and talk more about the DSM, but in the DSM-5 they took out hypochondria because of all of the criticism it was getting, doctors calling people hypochondriacs basically who were actually sick. And instead of just leaving it out completely, they changed it basically to somatic symptom disorder. Now, I've actually been diagnosed with it before by a medical student who got a high five by her doctor in the hallway when I could hear. But basically, it's a disorder where people are psychosomatically making themselves sick. And they're not doing it intentionally, it says, but they are making themselves sick and exhibiting symptoms, and it can be cured by therapy. And like I said, I've been told that it's very insulting, and so if you get told that, you'll know exactly what they're saying. Because when I went into the doctor and they said that, my boyfriend thought that all was good and happy, and oh look, you finally got something, diagnosis, and I was like, no, that's not good. Let me tell you why. The other thing is, and Lori Edwards didn't talk about this, is they put in the DSM-5 conversion disorder, which is also called functional neurological symptom disorder, but they use any specialty, functional, cardiac or cardiological symptom disorder, functional sleep symptom disorder, and it's basically any symptoms that exhibit themselves in a physical way and are defined by a certain specialty but have no biological basis to it. So for me, I got the somatic sleep symptom or functional sleep symptom disorder, and that was just them saying I have sleep symptoms, but I don't have a sleep disorder, and so they're probably being caused psychologically. And so the last one I'm going to talk about is another one I was diagnosed with at one point, which is medical student syndrome. I was at one point walking this really fine line because a doctor told me I had medical student syndrome because when he was trying to write me off as having, needing to go to therapy, I said, well, can't you run this test? Can't you run that test? They haven't tried this yet, and he was like, oh, you seem a very smart, intelligent person who's done research. And he goes, have you ever heard of medical student syndrome? And I was like, yes. And medical student syndrome is when you research, or medical students research diseases, and usually their first year, and they start seeing themselves in these diseases and then start getting phantom symptoms, and then basically diagnose themselves with things like Parkinson's and all kinds of horrid things. But it usually cleared up right away as soon as they figure out that's what's going on. And they found in their schools, if they just give their medical students a journal to write their feelings about certain disorders, that it clears up. But doctors, of course, if you're asking too many questions, like to, threaten you with that diagnosis. So for a while, I was walking this really fine line. I was this little ball of misery because I couldn't be too knowledgeable, or else, I was doing it to myself. But I also was worried that they were missing something, and they were at the point where they were writing me off. So I was like, if I don't say anything, they're never going to find out what's wrong with me. But if I say too much, then I'm doing it to myself again. So I didn't know what to do. I was so happy when I got my diagnosis, because now I actually have a leg to stand on. They're going to be seeing a completely different me, because I'm going to be like, okay, now I can do research, and I have, and you guys, got to listen to me. So the last thing I'm going to tell you is actually something that'll help you in a way. It's called gaslighting, and it's a actual medical term. And what it is applied to is it actually came from a movie from 1944, and it was a woman whose husband wanted her jewels, so thought if she could get her institutionalized, he could get them. So he was messing with the gas lights to make them flicker. And then whenever they would flicker and she'd say something, he'd be like, "You're going, no, they weren't flickering. I don't know what you're talking about." And he would do stuff like that to mess with her and make her go, "Oh, am I seeing things? What's going on with me?" And trying to convince her basically that she was going crazy. And abusers do this with their, wife beaters, basically, because they'll say things like, "Oh, I never pushed you down the stairs. You fell down the stairs. You must be imagining things," or "This is normal. This is normal." You thinking it's not normal is actually the crazy thing, and making them not want to talk to anybody because they think they're crazy. And that's what doctors are doing to their patients. That's by, like I said, threatening us with things like medical student syndrome or somatic symptom disorder. They're making you go, "Well, it's about the subconscious, and I don't know what my subconscious is doing or wanting. Maybe I am doing this to myself. Crazy people don't know they're crazy, so maybe I am crazy. What if I am doing this to myself? Why isn't therapy working? And maybe I need to go into better therapy. Maybe I need to, go in." Some people are even institutionalized themselves, and that is gaslighting, and it is a form of abuse. So if you go into a doctor and they ask you, "Do you know what medical student syndrome is?" your answer can be like, "Yes, I do." "Do you know what gaslighting is?" And I guarantee you they probably don't. And so they'll probably write you off, and then you'll leave the doctor's office and they'll look it up and go, "Hey," and maybe they'll think about how they treat you next time. But I can hope. They'll probably have something else to, make you seem crazy. But it's really is a problem the way doctors want to write us off. And I am trying to just give you a little bit of knowledge to go forward with. And I have lots more to talk about the medical community. I have a lot more research that I've done, and I have a lot more to share with you. Don't think that this is it. If I haven't thought of something, I might go over it later. You can always send me a message and let me know what it is that you're thinking of. Besides that, just like my page, like my videos, look at my fundraiser. There's a link on the top of my Speaking Through the Fog website. And just keep watching. Hope you guys have a good day.